So this could be the nodal one. This could be actually the antidromic sequence. And if this is the case, if this is the antidromic sequence, which again, we haven't performed any maneuvers to know that, if that is the case, the green one is the winner, if this is the AV node, okay?
Okay.
Then let's go back and back to the antidromic one, as you called it. Back.
Okay. Okay.
Here, look at this. Is this the same atrial sequence that the other one?
No.
What atrial sequence is this one? Which one is this one?
Right atrium 1 and 2 is the earliest retrograde atrial activity.
So basically, accessory pathway. So then go back. So then this should be probably left back. Go back.
Okay.
Back. Leave it there. No, leave it there, please. So then if this is the atrial sequence through the accessory pathway, that means that the patient is having a left bundle branch block.
Okay.
So this should be no antidromic tachycardia, should be probably an orthodromic tachycardia with left bundle branch block, or another accessory pathway, another type of pre-excitation, but luckily this patient, she only had one type of pre-excitation. So this one, the one that you call antidromic, this was seems an orthodromic tachycardia with left bundle branch block. Next one. So what do we have here? We have exactly the same, but we have got rid of the left bundle branch block thanks to the entrainment. So we have the same tachycardia as before, the same one, but we got rid of the left bundle branch block because of the entrainment. Next one. And this one is totally different. You see the difference now?
Yes,
this is probably the antidromic one. Actually, if you look at the VA intervals, they're changing. So this kind of suggests pretty much that it could be the nodal conduction. Look at the VA. We have totally different VA intervals. So, which again is, you know.
Excuse me, Javier.
Yep.
It looks like atrial tachycardia conducting through the accessory pathway after the too many shocks she received.
I mean, it could be, absolutely. But then the question, if that is correct, and it could be, then we have to have exactly the same morphology, the same as the WPW, because again, probably it could be, that's the other option. You either have an antidromic one, or you have an tachycardia with pre-excitation. So then, by looking at this pre-excitation, the QRS is the same. Whether it's is going to be the same if you have antidromic. Look, the only thing that talks against your tachycardia is that if it is the case, then you need to have fusion in the QRSs. Fusion between going through the accessory pathway and through the AV node. Do we see fusion here in the QRSs, or are all the same? Because if it's an tachycardia, it has to go through the accessory pathway and through the AV node. And we see no fusion here. All QRSs are the same. So that increases the chance of being an antidromic one. Increases the chance. But I absolutely agree. We agree with you that we can't exclude an tachycardia going only through the accessory pathway here.
Look at the RV signal recorded from the HIS1, 2.
Yeah.
It's very early to all the other ventricular signals on the lateral wall of the tricuspid.
I see. The question is where is that catheter?
The HIS catheter is most probably the RV.
Yeah, but the thing is that I don't remember placing a catheter at HIS at any point. So we just left it in the RV for pacing purposes.
Yeah.
Having said that, it should be slightly, further away from the, further away. It should be just advanced from the HIS, because it was actually, we left it at the RV apex. We didn't use any HIS. Actually, we didn't have any HIS at any point, which is, we should have tried to. But again, in this particular case, it was a third procedure. So we skipped the EPS. And, but again, I don't see fusion. So It could be an antidromic. It could be a tachycardia.
Look at the AV from the starting from the second beat. The
Yep.
AV interval is getting longer and longer. Which I don't know
Well,
why.
yes. Rather than the AV, the most striking one is the VA. Actually, is the ventricular the ventricular atrial relationship, because first one is kind of a short VA, next one is very long, then short, then short. So clearly, I mean that could be an tachycardia. But the other option again is if you have an antidromic one, it wouldn't be at the beginning of the antidromic tachycardia. It wouldn't be so surprising to have these changes in the VA's sequence through the AV node. So to be honest, at this point, I don't know if this is an antidromic one or an antitachycardia only through the accessory pathway. Again, I would stick slightly more to the antidromic one, slightly more, just because of the QRS seeming all very similar and no fusion. Next one. Okay, let's see what we have in here. Okay.
I think that was the extra stimulus which show a change in retrograde activation sequence.
So then what do you see here? Basically, the first beat is going through the AV node. The first, go to the other one, the first one. Go left with the mouse. That one. The one, look at the sequence. So the first one is the blue 9-1. Sorry, the blue 9-10. It's not 1-2, the first one. That's one. So that's going through the AV node. Next one, we have induced some decremental conduction of the AV node, and now we have a different atrial sequence. And now this atrial sequence now is probably fusion between AV node and the accessory pathway. Look at now, 9-10, blue 9-10 is not the earliest one anymore. See?
Yes.
Now, 1-2 is exactly at the same, the blue one in 1-2 is exactly at the same time as before. What does that mean? That we, in both bits, we have fusion between the AV node, winning the first one, and the accessory pathway winning the second one. So we have two different VA sequences here. So this is why we knew at the beginning that the patient also had AV nodal conduction, not just only through the axonal pathway, because I saw this at the beginning. Two different sequences when we were adding an extra stimulus to the basic drive cycle length. So two VA sequences there. Next one. Okay, show me what you have in here. What is this? You haven't studied this slide much, right? You know, I have my fellows studying these ones for hours before bringing them to me. Okay, what do you see here?
Yeah.
Atrial fibrillation.
Yeah.
The first part is atrial fibrillation, the first part, not the second one. So this is a burst of atrial fibrillation inducing what it seems like probably the antidromic tachycardia, because look at the last atrial sequence. The last atrial sequence, the first component is the green one, 7-8. So it seems like it's an atrial fibrillation that is going to get organized into what probably was the antidromic tachycardia, though we never did any maneuver to fully ascertain that it was antidromic. But look at the atrial sequence. So it seems like an atrial fibrillation burst inducing an antidromic tachycardia. Seems, again, we didn't do the classical maneuvers to diagnose an antidromic one. Next one. Okay, so what do you see here?
This is a voltage mapping of right atrium.
And anything else? So what is the whole purpose of bringing this slide here? Tell me. You selected it. So what is the purpose of bringing this slide here? Tell me. Is this useful at all to anyone here, this slide?
I think we concentrate actually on the activation map.
So then the question is, do you see an activation map here?
No, the voltage map only.
So then this is a absolutely useless slide.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but
And what about this?
I have a point. Go back.
Okay, go back. Go back, please. Sure, go for it. Tell me.
If you look at the site where we ablated it, you can see that there is low voltage here, meaning that there was many trials of ablation at this area.
The problem, Mervat, is that here you have several things. We were creating this map looking for the to be honest, this particular one, I don't know if we were looking here for the ventricular insertion or the atrial insertion. So depending on what you're looking for, then you're going to have more voltage or less voltage. Probably here we were looking for the ventricular insertion. So that's why the atrial voltage is so poor, because we're here probably marking the ventricular insertion. So the ventricular insertion depends a lot on the contact. If you have poor contact, then for sure it's going to be low voltage. Having said that, if the contact was good, then you're absolutely right. Then you have that red stain in the middle of the purple area. That could be the area where the ablation was performed. But to be honest, I wouldn't rely on a voltage map because then the tricuspid annulus, sometimes you have poor contact, and then it's not really reliable at all. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. Next one, which is not one. Forget about this one. No, this one here. So tell me, what do you see here?
A site of earliest ventricular activation is at lateral tricuspid annulus.
Look, is this the earliest ventricular activation? Are you sure about it? Or is this the earliest atrial activation?
Okay.
The thing is, when you have the 3D map, you can do both things. You can either map the atrial insertion or you can map the ventricular insertion. So what did we do? Do you remember what we did?
I remember that you were looking for the retrograde atrial signal.
During 90% of the time. During 90% of the time. And then during 10% of the time, we looked for the ventricular insertion.
Yes.
And why I chose the atrial one? I chose that one because, as you said, as this patient had several ablations, or multiple ablations there, so I was expecting that the ventricular signal was going to be, as you said before, probably low voltage and fragmented. And so I said, let's go and look for the atrial insertion, because as long as you are like 4 or 5 millimeters away from the tricuspid annulus, the tissue should be normal. So then I would rely more on the atrial activation than the ventricular one, because the atrial tissue was much more preserved than the ventricular one. So here, I believe that this is the atrial insertion map. So here we were pacing the RV and marking the earliest atrial insertion by looking at the pentaray. So this is not the ventricular insertion, but the atrial one. And here we have 2 different areas with red spots, 2 ones. What does that mean?
Okay.
بيسألك يا جون ليه عندنا 2 red areas؟ يعني في حتة early في حتة early تانية، ليه؟ على التراكاسبيد أنس فيوجن مثلا؟
I don't know.
So basically here, the system is telling you that you have 2 atrial insertions. Is that what the system is telling you? One in the middle of the tricuspid annulus and the other one at the base of the appendage? You have to check the points when you see this.
Yeah.
So basically, I clicked on all the red points. And what I saw is that, yes, the red point at the upper end, it was real, the other ones as well. But probably the chances that the red spot at the beginning was an atrial ectopy bead because of mechanical was much higher. Why? Because the other ones is not a single point as the upper one. The other ones are probably like 6 or 7 points saying that the atrial insertion is at the mid-tricuspid annulus, whereas the other one is just made up of a single bead. So I skipped the upper one and focused on the other ones, on the midlines. but you have to click on the points. So I clicked on all the red points, and I couldn't delete the upper one because, again, that was clearly early. But as it was the only one, the chances are high that it was a mechanical beat induced by the pentarray. So we focused on the ones in the middle. Atrial insertion map. Next slide. Exactly the same with RAO and LAO. Very good. Next one. What do you see here? Same thing. AP and PA view. Next one. Atrial insertion. This one, again, useless.
Useless.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you bring here? What is this? Do you know what this is?
Dense mapping of the tricuspid annulus, where we localized our target at the lateral tricuspid annulus, and we were marking double potential, spiky potential with different colors. I don't remember which of which.
Yeah.
But
okay.
And we were measuring point by point in this area. We call it dense mapping. This is me, Merfit.
So basically here we have voltage map, which again is the less relevant map. So to me, I'm not interested in voltage map at all here. So I would have preferred to see an activation map instead of this one. So regarding the points, bloody voltage map. Regarding the points, the white ones were only ventricular signal, the ones at the ones that look inside the RV, those two points, those are only ventricular signal. Those ones. The blue point, the dark blue ones is the dark blue ones. I recall yes, that one. Those are the beautiful atrial and ventricular signals. Atrial and ventricular signals. The yellow ones, I believe, are the successful ones. The first, those yellow ones, and also the light blue one was like the first, the light blue one, the first transient success. And the second success, I'm not sure if it is here in this map, or if it was the green point. I need to check. But the blue points, I remember the dark blue ones were the classical, beautiful atrial and ventricular signal with fragmentation and all the rest. So the perfect ones, by looking at the standard criteria, were the dark blue ones. But we ablated at the dark blue ones and nothing happened. So the successes were behind the dark blue and before the dark blue, but not at the dark blue ones. Dark blue ones were, again, the most beautiful signals by looking at the standard criteria, but nothing happened there. And then there is some VCTAC points there as well, which I tend to remove in order to make things clearer. Next one.
Excuse me, Dr. Mourinho.
Yes.
Yes, the green point was the successful one. The last one we ablated at after the blue point.
At the ventricular insertion.
Rahma. This is introduce yourself.
Sure.
This is Rahma from Paris.
Yeah, sure. I recognize her very well.
Yeah.
So then basically the blue one, the light blue one, was the first round of success, and then the green one, the second round. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Again, I hate bipolar map. Please show me activation map. The red one, and you can see here. Yes. So again, that's just noise, and you can see here the manual points, the ablation manual points, because I prefer them. Next one. Yeah, the ones. Next one. No, back. Okay. That's it. So basically, all the red points here are the actual ablation ones. I prefer this one than VCTAC. I don't like VCTAC. I like this one better. So because those are the areas that. So basically, we started treating the atrial insertion first because I was hoping that the atrial insertion was going to be much easier. So most of the red points were focused around the light blue one. Remember that the light blue one was the first successful sign, more atrial. And then the green one was the no atrial signal at all, only ventricular signal. So the ventricular insertion. And there are some red points around it. And again, and the two white ones is just only ventricular signal, no atrial signal at all. I just marked them to know exactly if I have cut the tricuspid annulus properly. And when I saw that those two white points showed no atrial signal at all, I said, yes, the tricuspid annulus is properly created here. because at those 2 white points in RAO, there were no atrial signal whatsoever, meaning that they were actually ventricular signals. So I think that the annulus is properly cut where it was. Again, dark blue ones, the one with the beautiful signals, light blue one, atrial insertion, and the green point, ventricular insertion. Next one.
Okay. This is a final result after successful ablation. ECG after 1 week.
Yeah.
With no recurrence of accessory pathway. So,
and we know that this one is probably because of the Q wave in lead 1. You see there's a Q wave in lead 1?
Yes.
Okay. And that Q wave there is whatever those notched pictures of the QRS, I just don't care. If the patient has a Q wave in lead 1, there is no right-sided pathway. And the patient here has a Q wave in lead 1 and actually in AVL as well, but mainly in lead 1. Again, we have to follow this curve because these accessory pathways are clearly the most prone to come back, clearly. And if this patient is having syncopal episodes, you have to follow her. I wouldn't say hallelujah until at least 3 months after the procedure, because again, these accessory pathways are very prone to come back. So you have to be aware of that, and I really hope that it's not the case, but it could perfectly happen. If that is the case, again, there was another ablation procedure to the ventricular insertion should be in place. But let's see if she's lucky. But again, having syncopes, you have to see this curve closely.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Good.
This is first case.
We can conclude in this case that a precise mapping for redo cases should be done for the atrial signal and the ventricular signal. Using 3D mapping was of utmost importance in such cases because you can make anatomical localization of the tricuspid annulus. And as Dr. Morieno showed us, ventricular insertion, the ventricular electrogram localization with the white points, the atrial insertion, we were localizing it with during the tachycardia or during V-pacing, either or, and checking every single point at the tricuspid annulus where the target accessory pathway should be there. Also, after we did the first ablation, Dr. Morieno was suspicious. He said, wait, this accessory pathway loved to come back, and it came back actually twice. And he has to go within this area sometime to the ventricular, little bit to the ventricle, little bit to the atrium, little bit on the tricuspid annulus. This is what I understand during the procedure. Any correction?
I mean, absolutely. No, I mean, absolutely correct. It's just the only thing that I would add is that I find extremely helpful in these cases the Agilis sheath and the contact force catheter. And the contact force. Why? Because the main problem here is that it may look like you have a wonderful signal, but you only have 1 gram or 2 grams. Okay. So for me, it's extremely important to have the Agilis from the beginning. When I see a right-sided, a free wall right-sided pathway, always with Agilis from the beginning. Not if I fail, no, from the beginning. And also with contact force catheter, because I need to know, as we saw, that we had 10 grams. So, and if I have 10 grams, I know what I can do with the power. I can go 40 watts. If I only have 3 grams, I'm going to go for 50 watts or 55 watts or 60 watts. So I will adjust my power according to the contact. So in these so difficult cases, for me, it's very important. Not just all the things that you said, I fully agree with that, but only on top of that, the Agilis and the contact force. Good.
How about using the left subclavian or left internal or right internal jugular approach?
So basically, I only use that for the anteroseptal ones, looking at the LAO, the clock, for the ones at the 1, at the 12, at the 11, and that's it. The ones at the 10, 9, I prefer from below and with Agilis. I don't feel very comfortable doing them from above when they are beyond the 11. So 11, 12, 1, that sector, I feel very comfortable doing it from above. But if I have to go below that sector, I prefer this is the same approach that we did.
Thank you very much for this nice, wonderful case. Second case,
no.
yalla, John.
Second case. Okay. Second case is a 14 years old male patient with secondum ASD closure device. Holter show atrial tachycardia with recurrent attack of atrial tachycardia. MRI previous to insertion of closure device was almost normal except for secondum ASD. This is ECG of tachycardia.
Okay, sorry, hold back. Go back to the previous one, please. So here they say nothing about the left atrium, right?
Yes,
no
comment.
No comments on the left atrium.
No comment on left atrium.
They are mentioning that the left ventricle has normal overall systolic function. That was before closing his ASD.
Yep. That's
Normal
important
thickness.
because remember that this case was very, very striking because of the left atrial abnormalities, and here apparently should be a normal left atrium. If they didn't even mention anything about the left atrium, that means that the left atrium that this patient had was not huge, according to this. Probably the right atrium, they say, is dilated. They didn't measure much, just dilated, but they didn't say anything about the left atrium. That's important. Okay.
Okay. This is the ECG of tachycardia.
So here, the thing that strikes me the most is why does a 14-year-old boy have a left bundle branch block? Okay, next one. White clear tachycardia, not much to say.
This is also ECG of tachycardia with, I think, 2 or 3 to 1 conduction.
It's probably like 4 to 1 or something like that. So 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Yep. So here the thing is, again, the previous one you may say that maybe the patient has a functional left bundle branch block, but here there's no functional left bundle branch block because the heart rate is not high. So clearly this patient has an organic left bundle branch block. Being 14, that's not normal. This patient has a problem. And an atrial septal defect does not give you a left bundle branch block, being 14 years old. Next one.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me, what do you see here?
This is also an ECG of atrial tachycardia of, I think it's mostly atrial tachycardia, conducted also in left bundle branch morphology.
And why is this not atrial fibrillation? Tell me why.
There is a prominent P wave here in V1.
Yep. And is that thing reproducible along the tracing? Can you see the same thing along the tracing or only those two ones?
I think it is consistent, but
don't look for it there. You have to look at it in V1. There's nothing but V1. The rest leads, they don't exist. The problem is that the thing that you're showing me here in V1, I cannot see anywhere else in V1, those two activations. So you have to perceive somebody that this is not atrial fibrillation just by showing this slide. Do you follow me?
Yes.
Okay, next one. And what are you showing me here? First, where are the catheters?
Catheters, I think I have a fluoroscopic picture here. Right atrial catheter, decapolar catheter in right atrium, and decapolar catheter in coronary sinus.
Okay, good. So now go back. Okay. Go back. Okay, good. So now if you show me that, now you have to tell me that the green one is inside the CS. Is that correct?
I think it's dislodged to the right ventricle. In this case.
So then you're telling me that who was holding the catheter here. I think it was it Rania at the beginning who was placing the catheter?
John.
Right? John.
Yes.
So John, do you think that he's telling you that the green one is in the RV? Do you agree with that? He's telling you that you don't know where the CS catheter is in a patient.
No, I think that coronary catheter was engaged to a branch in the coronary sinus, okay, as the first, okay, and the blue one on right atrial wall. And here we see that we arrange the catheter at this slide. Right atrium 7 and 8 is the early signal, okay, at this time, and we cannot engage the coronary sinus in the pure coronary sinus, the main coronary sinus. We also engage to a branch of the coronary sinus. That what I remember.
Yep. So I fully agree with you that that's what it really looks like the distal ones inside the branch. And but clearly this is not RV. So I fully agree with you. This is not RV. And here the interesting thing is that if we look at the atrial signal, if we look at, let's see, I'm looking at the first part of the slide. We can see some pacing artifacts, and there are like more. Okay, so we have atrial signals and pacing artifacts. Okay, because I'm looking at the green one, CS56, and I see like many spikes there. But some of them are electrons, and the other ones are not electrons, are just pacing artifacts. So probably, I don't know if we were trying here to entrain or but probably that was not properly activated. And okay,
we actually okay, continue.
No, basically go back to the previous one. Go back. Yeah. So here, keep in mind that as we both remember very well, John, the amplitude of the signals of this space in the left atrium. So here, by looking at the CS catheter, it is striking that although it may be in a branch, but the actual voltage of the atrial signal in 5-6 is still little. And in 7-8 is very, very little. So it's very unusual to have such low voltage electrons of the CS catheter at 7-8. It should have been bigger. So that's kind of funny, like, oof.
I want to add something regarding the CS ventricular electrogram. It is at the end of the QRS complex because this is left bundle branch block. So this confirm what Musalami was saying. Also, if we compare it to the right atrium, the ventricular electrogram on the right side is a small, tiny one after the atrial electrogram on RA5 and 6. It's preceding the electrogram of the CS, which is is reflecting the left ventricular electrogram, which is lit because of the left bundle branch block. So this helped us to localize where the CS catheter at that tracing is located.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay. Next one.
Sorry. This is a video of transeptal puncture.
Okay, so here the interesting thing of the transeptal puncture is that basically when people have to do this, they always do it under TE guidance or ICE guidance, and we had to do it just using the conventional fluoro, and luckily everything went very well because the unplugged was actually helping us to know exactly where we were. So even when we had no ICE or TE, to be honest, we didn't need it much thanks to the unplugged, thanks to the atrial septal device closure device, because we knew exactly where we were. So that helped us a lot, to be honest.
I want to add something because we have many fellows attending with us and they did not attend the case, that we were prepared for the patient who has ASD closure by a device to do either one of two, either to go below the device, which we did it before once, and this should be TE guided, or to go through the device if the device size is big and is encroaching on the whole interatrial septum and you cannot find a space to go through. In this case, the TEA was working in the beginning of the procedure, and then there was some software problem then. But we were lucky to find enough space below the amplatzer to go through into the left side. I think Rania Samir did the puncture. Rania.
No, it was Alfie.
Alfie, okay.
Yeah, it was Alfie.
Alfie is the king of transeptal now.
I see. I fully agree. All right. Good. So then after getting the transeptal access, and by the way, why did we go transeptal on the first
below
place?
The
do you guys remember?
I remember.
Yeah, I remember it was below the device. We didn't go through the device.
Sure. My point is,
just below the device.
Yeah, my point is, why did we go transeptal? Why did we have to do that? Does anyone remember why?
We go for transeptal as we suspect that patient had atypical flutter or left atrial tachy, so we go transeptal for mapping the left side.
Yes, my point is, why did we suspect that it was coming from the left atrium? Why?
As P wave in the V1 was positive.
I remember. We did entrainment, Javier. I think we did entrainment. Yes, we did entrainment from the. Yes, we entrained from the. I think from
the lateral CTI.
Lateral and CTI, and it was very long, and that's why we decided to go to the.
And then we entrain also Profrania from proximal CS caster, this proximal from CS 9 and 10 or 7 and 8, and we found that it is a short PPI. So we suspect that we should go for left side also.
So it was very interesting because, I mean, go back to the previous slide, go 2 slides back, another one back, and back. This one. So you look at the atrial, look at the atrial sequence of the second part of the slide. If you look at the atrial sequence, the first component is green one, CS78. That's the first one, the green one. And then from 7-8 goes to 5-6, and then from 3-4. So we have a concentric atrial sequence.
Yes.
So this could be a right atrial thing. Perfectly. Could be right atrial. So it's not that we didn't see here an eccentric activation sequence so that we had to go for transeptal. That was not the case. So when we saw this, we said, okay, maybe this is from the right side. So we entrained from the right side, and we entrained from a couple of spots, right atrial free wall, and kind of lateral CTI more or less, but right atrial free wall at the beginning, and we saw long post-patient interval, pretty long one. So I said, okay, then the chances were high that we had to go to the left atrium. But again, by looking at that sequence, well, we can exclude that this is not something focal coming from the vein of Marshall or something coming from around the left superior pulmonary vein. That's for sure it's not the case. So it has to be something related either to the right superior pulmonary vein or a perimitral reentry or something septal, because we see that the 7-8 is earlier than 5-6 and earlier than 3-4. And actually, John remember very well, when we trained from the CS was not at the beginning. And to be honest, I didn't want to do it at the beginning from the proximal CS because very often you have a nice post-patient interval from ostium with the coronary sinus in arrhythmias that are coming either from the right side and from the left side. So it doesn't help you much, to be honest, to decide whether I'm going to go right or I'm going to go left. Because if you have a nice post-patient interval at the CS ostium, well, to be honest, it can be a CTI flutter, it can be a left side flutter. I have no idea. So this is why we entrained from lateral right atrial, was very, very long. And then said, okay, this is so long. We just went slightly lateral to the CTI, again, long enough. So, but we did the post-patient, we entrained from the CS nearly at the end of the procedure, nearly. Okay, so let's go to the left side and let's see what we have in there. Go.
This successful ablation site.
Look, so I need to see the map. Show me the map, not this, but the map. Okay, so here, tell me, what do you see here?
the activation map of left atrium.
Good. And what is this telling you?
This is RLA view and LA view.
Yep. So look at the range of colors. Do we have the whole tachycardia cycle length from here? Look at the color range. We have from minus 265, you can see on the upper right side of the corner, the upper right corner, we have red color from minus 265, and the blue color is minus 50. So we have around 310 milliseconds mapped here, which is basically nearly the whole tachycardia cycle length. So by looking at this, it seems like we have the whole tachycardia cycle length inside the left atrium. So it suggests that we have a macro reentry here.
Okay.
And if you look at the colors, to be honest, we have all the colors of the rainbow here. So by looking at this, the chances are very high that we have perimitral reentry. We have the orange, we have the yellow, we have the green, the light blue, the darker blue, and the dark blue. We have all the colors of the rainbow here. So I was absolutely convinced that we have a perimitral reentry at this point. Show me more information. More. Let's see. Now we want the voltage map here. Let's see if you have brought the voltage map here. Look for a voltage map. Because in this case, it's important, the voltage map, not the WPW. Yeah. Okay, show me the voltage map. Go and let's hope that you have a voltage map anywhere. No. Okay. Keep on looking. Please, please, please have the bipolar map. Because that's the most important thing in this case.
Give me 1 minute, please.
Dr. Morieno, by the time he's looking for this voltage map, I have a question. Does this child or young adult had like cardiomyopathy and the ASD was accidentally discovered because his ejection fraction is 40% now with the left bundle, which goes with cardiomyopathy? Is it coincidence, two diseases together? And is this atrial tachycardia related to his ASD or related to his cardiomyopathy?
In my opinion, the second thing.
Second
this is why it is, yeah, look at this. 14 years old. Look at this. Extremely, extremely pathologic. This patient clearly has an electric D6 in his heart. This is the sickest left atrium that I have seen in my life. Being 14. This is not an atrial septal defect problem. The left atrium would have been like this if that were the case. So this patient has a problem. Probably has a sodium channel problem, and that's why he has the left bundle branch block, and that's why he has this one. So basically, the left atrium was destroyed. When you see those great, yeah.
Can you hear me? I have a technical question. I'm Haitham Badran.
Haitham Badran is Haitham Badran is the current president of the Egyptian Cardiac Rhythm Association, and he agreed that this session will be under his supervision. Thank you, Haitham, for joining us.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's my pleasure. So my question is purely technical. How safe to do the transseptal puncture in the presence of Amplatzer? And what's the incidence of the Amplatzer dislodgement, for example, or making another defect or something like this? And how old was the Amplatzer in this patient?
So basically, what there are several cases reported about doing this technique. And the main paper is a hard read-on published with, I think it was like 35 patients, American patients, or American and Italian patients. They joined together the databases, and they show these 31 or 36 patients. And basically what they report is that they had no problem whatsoever with any of the patients. That they have no problem with atrial, with the unplugged device. They have no problem as a residual ASD after the procedure, like long time after the procedure. So apparently it's much safer than what we thought at the beginning, to be honest. What they state is like 90% of their series, they were able to puncture around the unplugged, but not through it, 90% of the cases. But they also state in that paper that you need cautery for all those transeptals, just like we did here. We needed cautery to, once we did the transeptal, to be able to advance the dilator. And it was exactly the same. The other 10% of cases, they reported that they actually had to puncture through the metal. And they say that luckily they were able to do it. And of course, there are some cases of people dilating with an angioplasty balloon, even the access. And apparently, those things close spontaneously a few months later. So again, they report this as a safe procedure as long as they were using image. They were using eyes for that. Our idea was to use TE. So yeah, actually we used TE at the beginning, but it's just at one point, it just stopped running. But we had the fluoro, and luckily everything went well. Having said that, I'm not encouraging everybody to go and puncture every single unplugged that they see. But if you have to go for a case like this one, 14-year-old boy with a persistent atypical atrial flutter, I think that you have to go for it. The problem with this specific case is that we were hoping to find, just a standard atypical atrial flutter. But what we found was this. And here, Rania created this map beautifully with pentarray, pushing as hard as she could, because I was telling her, look, we have low voltage here, so keep on pushing. And no matter how much we pushed, we were not able to engage anything on that. And if you look at the high voltage threshold, it's 0.35 or 0.3. It's not even 0.5. Because with 0.5, we virtually were not able to see anything. So this patient has a huge electrical disease. It's impossible for him to stay arrhythmia-free forever. It's impossible. We were hoping to find one circuit. Okay, let's go for it, wherever it is, either a macro or a small reentry. But what we found was this. So after this, then we were trying to find out what actually this particular circuit was. So now let's go back to the other slides, the activation ones. Okay, good. So here, I was, again, hoping that we have a perimetral reentry, because sometimes when the left atrium is very sick, the area that is still preserved is the most anterior part, the appendage at the most anterior part, whereas the posterior wall just dies, and also the anterior one. So I was hoping that at least there was a rim of tissue around the mitral annulus where this patient may have a reentry. So we were looking point by point, looking at those and looking for the whole electrons. We need a magnifier to see the electrons, because they were virtually abolished. So we're just making our best trying to figure out if there was, with every of those points, if there was actually a signal there. Using this magnifier, we were able to track one point here, another point here, another one here. So point by point in order to create this. And once we saw this, I said, okay, we have the whole tachycardia cycle, and here it has to be a perimitral reentry. And what happened then, John? Well, we were hoping that we have a perimetral reentry.
Okay.
Then we did something.
I think we mapped, we based from lateral tricuspid from distal CS.
Rather than distal CS, at the beginning we faced from the orange spot. You see that orange area basically was the area with the healthiest tissue. And so we were kind of close to the Marshall area, so lateral mitral annulus. And to our surprise, do you have the recording system tracing of what happened when we entrained from the lateral mitral annulus? It would be lovely to see the recording system.
Unfortunately, it's not available with me.
Well, that was the most important thing, to be honest.
Okay.
We had a huge post-patient interval, 250 plus 250, that was the return cycle there, telling us that there are huge lines of block inside the left atrium, and we had no perimitral reentry. So we have long post-patient interval from the right atrial free wall, even longer post-patient interval from the lateral mitral annulus, no signal whatsoever on the posterior wall. So what is this? When we have very good post-patient interval at proximal CS, so this is a small reentry close to the CS ostium.
It's micro-entry.
So then what we decided is, okay, let's go to the, and by the way, then we trained also from kind of distal CS, and also from distal CS, we saw a long post-patient interval. So we excluded a perimitral reentry despite this map. We excluded that, and then we just went to the area where the nice post-patient interval was, and that was the CS ostium. So then, as usually they are located CS ostium from the right side, so we went to the right side, and we ablated at the CS ostium to the earliest signal. Like as a focal tachycardia, let's look for the earliest signal. We ablated there, and nothing happened. So we kept our seed inside the left atrium. So then John said, why don't we go exactly to the same spot, but from the left atrium? And we were exactly there. So this is why you see all the ablation points there. Those are the sum of the ablation points from the CS, right atrial CS and left atrial CS at the low sextant port. And then burning at the left side ostium of the CS area, it terminated, changed it into a second tachycardia. John kept on burning there, and he got away of it. So, okay.
We
so
can
what you can see
we
there,
can look at the fluoro, please. Aywa, yes, shukran, John
okay.
Murqos. Yes, run this because this is the site of ablation. Run the video.
There's no video, just a snapshot.
Yeah. Anyway, it's there. Yeah.
So again, and then we were ablating even closer to the CS catheter. Just at the end of John create a tiny line there in order to enlarge the whole area of ablation there. But again, in LAO, you would have seen in LAO that is just next to the 7/8 CS.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any other slide from the recording system. Next slide, if you have anything from there.
And فلورو تاني يا جون.
لا للاسف انا معايا الفيديو، انا ممكن اشغله بس
ماشي شغله فيديو الفيلم. شغله separate please. Why I ask about the question of two diseases, because I think we should concentrate with heart failure treatment for this young man, a boy, and we have to think about CRTP or left bundle area pacing because of his left bundle. We'll follow him. We'll follow him up. He hasn't come for follow-up, but he's doing good on telephone call. No tachycardia. But I'm thinking of treating him. We have to treat him as heart failure. I gave him already anti-failure treatment, but I'm waiting for the results of treating his arrhythmia as a precipitating factor for the low ejection fraction. And if he stays in this low ejection fraction, I will think of either left bundle area pacing or CRTP. What do you think, Dr. Javier?
I mean, I agree, but the thing is that he's 14. So we have to wait as much as possible before implanting a device because it's going to require many replacements. So I would wait for a device until ejection fraction is like around 30, 35. Yeah, I would really wait, because if we can wait 3 years, 5 years, that would be great. of course, if we have to implant a device, it has to be a physiologic one or CRT, because maybe this patient may require at one point an AV node ablation because of uncontrollable atrial tachycardias. So, but again, the later, the better. So now it's time for medical treatment, absolutely. And I would try to keep the device as late as possible because of his age, just because of his age. But again, I have never seen such a left atrium in my life. And I see many mitral stenosis, which left atrium are destroyed, but not as bad as this one. Okay, next case.
Okay.
Excuse me, Dr. Mervat, can I have a question?
Yes, please. Dr. Muhammad Musa is a lecturer of cardiology and is an eminent electrophysiologist at Ain Shams University. Musa.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Can we correlate the site of ablation in coronary sinus ostial atrial tachycardia with the surface ECG?
Yes, and there's a way. If you look at the in V1, it was pretty narrow. Rather than positive or negative, look at the P wave in the ECG, and if it was like a W, but that W tend to be narrow, like aorta tachycardias. And those are the narrowest P waves, to be honest, the ones coming from the ostium of the CS, or rather the ostial cell, the one coming from the mid septum. So you can, again, go back to the ECG. Having said that, to be honest, when I'm suspecting or when I see a persistent atrial flutter, I don't tend to look too much to the morphology of the P wave. To be honest, I just want to see if these are CTA dependent, clockwise or counterclockwise. If not, to be honest, I just don't care, because I'm going to place my catheters there, a duodecapolar catheter in the right atrium, CS, I'm going to evaluate. So I don't tend to look too much to the P wave morphology, to be honest. But in this particular case, once we saw that it was not a macro reentry, said, shit, if this is not a macro reentry, then if it's a focal tachycardia, scalp related, but focal tachycardia, then the P wave is important. And if you look at the tracings, the P wave in V1 was pretty narrow. Rather than positive or negative, was like a W, was narrow. So kind of, suggesting that yes, it could be a focal tachycardia coming from the, but again, this is not an automatic tachycardia, this is not after depolarization. This is a scalp-related small reentry, but because of the scars there.
John, please, the ECG of the PVC before and
yes,
after.
Please. Yes, so the ECG.
Okay.
The third case is a doctor who works in Gulf area. He underwent a session of ablation with one of the eminent electrophysiologists there, but unfortunately it was unsuccessful. His ECG showed the ventricular bigeminy and trigeminy, and his burden was more than 40% on Holter after the session of ablation, and before the session of ablation he underwent in the Gulf. He, being a doctor, he came to have his treatment in Egypt, and will show you his 12-lead ECG with the bigeminy. There was no report with him at all. So we started to do the case from scratch, as if this is only the first session. Yeah.
So basically what we tend to do many of these ones in, go back, please, go back. Good. So we tend to do these ones many here in Madrid, like this one. So obviously we see a QRS very positive in 2, 3 and AVF, so clearly outflow track. And by looking at the transition in V3 is very, very positive, the QRS. So basically it should be coming from the left side. So when it's coming from the left side, we look at if there are any notches in 2, 3 and AVF. And this one, you can barely see any notch. It's kind of pretty clean, the QRS in 2, 3 and AVF. So good. The cleaner, the better. The less number of notches, the better. The narrower, the better. Why? Because if it's narrow and notch-free, most of these ones are coming from the aorta, which are the easiest ones, to be honest. And so our experience here in Madrid is that most of men are, the outflow tachycardias are coming from the aorta, and most of women are coming from the RVOT. So we tend to have an 8 French short introducer for the artery and 8 French short introducer for the vein. So we will go 8 and 8. And we do it from the beginning, so we are not going to be burning like hell in the right side because I have to puncture the artery. No. The artery is punctured from the beginning. So then you don't feel lazy of checking the left side. So again, in men, we always start with the aorta and look what we see. And if we don't like what we see at the aorta, then we may look to the RVOT. But to be honest, I prefer any arrhythmia to be coming from the aorta because they're much easier to be mapped, much easier to ablate than the RVOT, where the catheter, you may bump the tachycardia, the catheter creates a lot of mechanical ectopies. You have to be really cautious with the power that you're going to be inside the RVOT. So I really prefer everything to be coming from the aorta. I feel much more confident if it's coming from the aorta than from the RVOT. So then what we did is we puncture 8 French for the artery, 8 French for the vein, and we started from the artery. And John, if you're there, you can keep talking about this case as you did it.
This is the follow-up. ECG.
جون كامل هو جون كامل هنا؟
No, John Morris.
He was asking for John Cameron.
I mean,
Actually-
basically, John did it with me at 11 in the night. So,
Yes.
have you got any map of this case? Any correct map?
Unfortunately, also no.
هتعرف
That's all
تجيبها؟
we have.
مش available للأسف.
Okay.
Another fellow to be hanged. There are no ropes enough in Madrid to hang all your fellows. There are no ropes enough here.
I will throw, but actually he did great job because I gave him this mission yesterday, and that he is he lives in a governorate about 2 hours from Cairo, and he was on duty. So I think he deserves a reward from me because without his big effort, we would not be sitting with you enjoying our time on the beach and with the science and knowledge of
I fully appreciate that. But again, it's a pity that we don't get to show them up because to
we
be
have
honest,
the data. We have all the data, but our photographer was busy also yesterday to get them ready. But I promise
look,
we'll.
you guys are lazy like hell. I am the one who
Yes,
does
we
my
are.
pictures. I'm the one who go and switch on the cursor to take all the information. I switch on the recording system to get all the information. Okay, so basically, in this case, so 8 French for the artery, 8 French for the vein, and we started mapping the aorta. So what we, if lead 1 is mainly negative, lead 1 is mainly negative, that suggests left coronary cusp. And if lead 1 is very positive, it suggests right coronary cusp. So then, as this one is mainly negative, we just headed directly there to the coronary cusp. We checked the right; it was not early at all. We checked the left coronary cusp, and it was like, probably minus 10 milliseconds, nothing earlier than that. But we were able to see a tiny prepotential, tiny one, before the beginning of the QRS. So, and I say tiny because the voltage of the area was blunted. So like if that area has already been treated before. So you couldn't see huge signals there. It was kind of blunted signal, but clearly the beginning of the signal, not what the Carto was automatically annotation. What we manually annotated the beginning of the signal. Remember that Carto never annotates the beginning of the signal. You have to do it yourself. So we were able to find a tiny sharp prepotential, tiny one. So we ablated there with a single application using 50 watts. So 5 seconds, nothing happened by Jiminism. 10 seconds, nothing happened by Jiminism. Hold it, 15 seconds, nothing. 20 seconds, they went away. So then we left a end of seed point, a blue floating point there, because every time I have a transient success or something like that, something happens, I always leave a 3D point there. So I know exactly that here the heat reaches the area and stops it. I don't know if like forever or transiently, but here something happens. So I left this blue point here, okay? And we ablated there for 3 minutes using up to 55 watts. We were looking at the impedance drop. Impedance drop was like -5, -8, -10, -12, -15, and it stayed at -15. So in theory, we are safe there. So we ablated using 40 milliliters irrigation, 40 in order to preserve as much as we can the wall of the artery, 40 milliliters, and we ablated at the beginning 50 watts and then 55 watts by looking at this impedance drop. If the impedance drop had gone faster down, we would have decreased the power. But to be honest, in our experience, the aorta is very, very safe. As long as you know that you are not at the left main, the aorta is very safe. So we knew because of the curved anatomy that we were not at the left main, but on top of this, John also even injected contrast using the irrigation port just to see that yes, we were at the coronary cusp. You could see the bending of the coronary cusp there and not the left main going out. So then we, after this application that took 20 seconds for the ventricular ectopist to go away, we waited for like 5 minutes. They didn't come back, and we decided to go for a bonus lesion slightly higher up, slightly closer to the left main. Just because we also have kind of a nice spot there at the beginning. So 3 millimeters above, but just, so we increased the treated area, but going for this second application, again, and I started with 50 watts, looking at the impedance drop, very stable, and we applied that for like around 2 minutes, the second application. After that, we waited for like 20 minutes, no more ectopist. Let's see what happens. And at this point now, I don't know how he's doing, to be honest. It's up to you. But we didn't map the RVOT, that's my point. We didn't map the RVOT, just the aorta. That was a single chamber map, aorta. And that's what we always do in men, always. And in women, sometimes we also start with the aorta just to have an idea of what we're gonna find. Then, if the ectopic beads have come back again after that, as we already have this blue floating point here, I would have reached that point from anywhere else. I wouldn't ablate it anymore from the aorta because you have already ablated the aorta. So you have to change something. So the next thing we tend to do is go to the mitral continuity, just below the blue point, and burn from there to see what happens. If nothing happens, then we go to the RVOT, and from the RVOT, just aim it. We don't even create a map. We just aim to reach the blue tag, the blue point. And we try to get as close as possible to blue from the RVOT, because we know that wherever the blue point is very close to the focus. So reach changing the chamber, but reach always the same spot, always the same area. So in this particular case, it was just the aorta. But we have this 3D point because sometimes you get transient successes, and instead of giving 10 more applications there, what we do is just we go to another chamber, but always aiming to the same blue point.
Javier, I have a question. This is Rania. From what I understood, that you got your earliest activation was not that early. It was earlier.
I mean, it was early, but to be honest, I mean, I never measure the timing. To be honest, I'm not.
You look for pre-systolic.
I look for pre-systolic. If I see a sharp pre-systolic potential, I don't care if it's minus 30, minus 10, minus 5. I just don't care. If I see it and I move the catheter around and I cannot see anything like that around, for me, that's my spot.
Okay.
Again, the problem is that if you don't see a pre-potential, then it may be coming from the other side. But when you see a sharp, tiny pre-potential, then the chances are very high. So to be honest, I mean, they measured this 10 milliseconds, but I didn't do it. I mean, just look, okay, we have potential. This one is the earliest of all the area around. For me, that should be enough.
Okay.
But again, when I don't see a pre-potential, that's when you are screwed, and you have to map somewhere else. Even if it's minus 20, because there might be a minus 40 somewhere else. This is why I'm always looking for this. And to see pre-potential, you have to prepare your eyes, and you have to prepare your recording system, and you have to prepare Carto. And unless you increase the gain a lot, you don't see them. So you have to be prepared to find them.
Okay.
If you work by default settings, you don't get to see them.
How do you prepare them?
Basically, with Pruka Cardiolab, I take the voltage to 10,000, which is the maximum voltage.
Okay.
10,000 is the maximum. Cool. The standard one is 2,500. So I go to 5,000 and then 10,000. 10,000 is the highest gain of all with Pruka. If I'm working with BARD, with EP Lab BARD, then I use X32, which is like X32, X64. So times 32 times 64 are kind of like the maximum gain you can have without having noise.
Okay. How about the Carto? You increase the gains on the Carto. Just increase the gains.
There's no way. And the problem is that Rahman knows very well, they don't do that for you. They won't do that for you.
They don't do
Why?
it.
Because
they
every
tend
time
to decrease the gains. They tend to decrease
all the time. They're
all
always
the time.
why? Because they have a problem, and you guys don't know. There is no clipping the signals in Carto or in Navex.
Yes.
There's no clipping. So why do we have clipping in the recording system? We've been doing EP for 20 to 25 years.
Yes.
We are clipping because when we wanted to see the hiss, if you don't clip it, you never see the hiss.
Yes.
So we have a ventricular signal like this, you clip it because you want to see something like this. So they have no clipping. So every time they're working on healthy tissue, like mitral continuity or the RDOT, they have a huge signal. And what are they going to do? Spontaneously shorten. So when you go back to the aorta, you see shit. And if you don't know that they have no clipping plane and they're going to do systematically this, you're going to run into a problem. So I love Carto, I love Insight X, I love Riemann, but I know their limitations.
Okay.
And one of the limitations, they have no clipping plane. So you have to increase a lot the gain, even if it hurts their eyes. I'm sorry about that, but you have to do that on purpose.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Dr. Mourinho. We reached our 3 interesting cases, which you helped a lot in our lab. We are really very grateful to you to share your time, knowledge, and expertise with us. And I would like to ask anybody who has any more questions so that we can finish our meeting.
And go to the beach.
Go to the beach. Yes.
Not me.
Okay. We have
Thank you, Dr. Mervet,
here
for your time.
Mean.
I'm Khaled from Biosense.
Thank you, Khaled from Biosense. And I hope that we can arrange some more meetings through the Biosense Support Educational Program, as I spoke with your boss, Dr. Akram, so that we can get a lot of benefit from Dr. Mourinho's expertise and actually caring for the patients. We enjoyed you, but we want you to come and enjoy the beaches of Egypt, either in winter on the Red Sea or in summer on the Mediterranean Sea. You have to share with us our beauty beaches. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, it was a pleasure. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.